Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. As we mentioned, Todd Patkin is our guest on the show, a businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and author of the book, Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and finally, Let the Sun Shine In. Todd, welcome to This Week in America.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Love the book. So many things to talk about in the program today. Let's start off with the very basic. What exactly is happiness? And I know for you, when we would look, and I mentioned in the introduction, the business background you have, people will look and go, boy, for a young businessman, this guy had it all. Yet you were seeking happiness. You couldn't quite find it. What is happiness? What are we looking for?
You know, for me, happiness is when you finally get to the point where you are just okay with yourself for who you are. So many of us are always feeling like we have to be more, and I feel like we just don't love ourselves. I certainly didn't. So I always needed everybody else to tell me how great I was and how fantastic I was. So it's finally getting to the point where you're just okay with who you are. You treat yourself as good and as kind as you do the other people in your life that you love.
Is that really where it all starts, with ourselves? If we're not satisfied with who we are, no matter what we try to do outwardly, we're going to have that problem and possibly face depression and anxiety as you did.
Yeah, that's what I found in my own life, Rick, is that I had everything. You know, I had a wonderful wife, beautiful son, more money than I ever dreamed possible, and I still had a nervous breakdown at the age of 36 because I didn't love me. I needed everybody else to tell me, Todd, you're the greatest. So I needed straight A's in school, and then I needed to be the best in my business and open more stores. And then eventually it was raising the most money I could for politicians, and eventually I broke. It was only after my breakdown that I said, Todd, you know, you're driving yourself crazy. You do 100 good things in a day, and you make one mistake, and you just beat yourself up about that one mistake. And I've learned not to do that anymore. I've learned to treat myself as lovingly and as kindly as I do the other people in my life that I love.
Interesting book. The book is called Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and finally Let the Sun Shine In. Todd Patkin is our guest on the program. It's Patkin. You can go to one of two websites, and both of these are on our website. You can log on and link onto those sites, toddpatkin.com or findinghappinessthebook.com. And you talk about you were never really satisfied with who you are. You kept pushing yourself. And you talk a lot in the book about perfectionism, about being an overachiever. And you wave that red flag out there that we really need to watch our teenagers so we're not putting too much pressure on them and they're not putting too much pressure on themselves.
Yeah, you know, it's so true. I speak in high schools all the time, and it's so sad. I'll have 300 kids in an auditorium, and I'll ask, how many of you at the end of the day go home and say, you know, I'm just the coolest, the greatest kid. I'm handsome, I'm beautiful. And I'll have 11, Rick, out of 300. And then I'll ask, how many of you go home at the end of the day and say, my God, you know, I did it again. I spilt the milk in front of my friends. They all laughed at me. I'm just dumb. I'm stupid. I'm so ugly. And I got 289 out of 300. So in our country, we're really pushing perfectionism. And everybody feels like they have to be perfect. Most of us do 100 things right in a day. We make one mistake. We focus on that one mistake, telling ourselves we're no good, we're dumb, and it's really sets our lives up, you know, to be very, very unhappy.
In your book, and you start off a lot of talking about your own experiences, and the book is very relatable. It's called Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and finally, Let the Sun Shine In. You've got this very simple situation. You're sitting there about to order, and you really can't decide between potato salad and coleslaw. And with this anxiety and going back and forth, and the waitress is getting irritated, that really was a sign to you that I'm just about to lose it here.
Well, I actually couldn't answer her. What happened to me is I had broken my feet doing a motivational speech. It's a long story. And my wife and I suffered from a lot of infertility. And because I couldn't go to the gym, which I'm used to, that was my drug of choice back then, working through my anxiety, I couldn't handle the fact that we had lost the pregnancy. And I slowly got worse and worse. And I liken a breakdown to like popcorn in a microwave. Most of us have a million neurons in our brain, and if you're happy, they're going a million miles an hour. And as you get depressed, they slow down. And I went to the wrong psychiatrist to put me on the wrong meds initially. And so I actually went, by the time I got to this restaurant, I was so messed up that I could not even answer the waitress when she said, would you like potato salad or coleslaw with your dinner? That's how fried my brain was.
You talk about you viewing life as a landscape, and you remember the day the sunshine began to fade. And the title of the book is Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and Finally Let the Sunshine In. When did you begin to see the sunshine fade, and what were you able to do about it?
Well, as I said, it really, I guess, started with that terrible disappointment because my wife and I really thought we were going to be able to have a second child. And it just slowly went down and down. And finally, I got to the point where I was like a little kid. I mean, I just wanted to be in bed, wanted to be around my parents who I thought would understand me. And I just really almost didn't want to be alive. I had 2 days when I wanted to die. I don't think I would have killed myself, but I felt that badly. And it was a tremendous epiphany for me because when you've had a breakdown, if anyone has, the one thing I can tell you is you never, ever want to go there again. It's so painful. And so when there's something that's happened and you don't want it to happen again, most people would say, well, how did I get there? So you don't wind up taking that same road. And I realized, I have a beautiful wife, a wonderful son, plenty of money. You know what? I did it to myself. I'm a good guy. I do wonderful things every day. Maybe I make one mistake. Maybe I say one wrong thing. And I was picking it apart like most people do and just beating myself up and letting myself know how, bad I was and how disappointed I was with myself. And I don't do that anymore. That's the beauty of the breakdown. I said, enough is enough. I'm not going to ruin my life anymore. Now, if I do 100 things right in a day, I'm going to look at each of those 100 and say, Todd, you're really a good guy. And if I make a mistake, I'll say, it was a mistake. You're human. So you're fallible. And the dictionary fallible says you'll make a mistake. So look, that's normal. That's a part of life. Move on, learn from it, and it's enough.
Todd Patkin, our guest on the program, author of the book Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and Finally Let the Sunshine In. Two websites to go to, toddpatkin.com, along with findinghappinessthebook.com. The book is available at Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. Information on the book, and you can order on the websites as well. Also, there's a workbook we'll talk about here in a few seconds, 12 Weeks to Finding Happiness Boot Camp for Building Happier People. A lot of the principles we're talking about in this portion of the program, a lot of what Todd went through, in the book, it's 12 Weeks to Finding Happiness. It's an excellent workshop. We'll basically take your hand and walk through. I want to go back to something you were talking about. Is it possible to manage our moods by simply changing our minds? Does it work that way? By changing our thoughts?
Well, they always say that you are what you think about. So many people will say, if you just smile, look, if I'm happy, I smile. But if you're smiling, you actually become happy. It's a fact. So much of it's the way that you change how you view things. I think of things completely differently than I did prior to my breakdown, but it's not easy. Everything in my 12-week program is simple, really simple, but it's very difficult for people our age. I'm 47 years old. Most people in their 40s have had 40 years. It's almost like a record of constantly playing it the same way. I'm no good. Why am I so stupid? Why, does it always rain more on my street? Why do people always treat me this way? And instead, you've got to reverse it. People are good. That was one little mistake. You know what? It's great that I got a speeding ticket because if I didn't, maybe I would have continued to go too fast. I would have maybe hit someone and, I'd be going to jail. Thank you, God, for giving me a speeding ticket. It's a different way of looking at things.
Well, and you talk in the book about sort of balancing passion and money and what will make you happy. And obviously the choice is passion, but are so many of us guided by money? We think if we keep chasing money, we're going to be chasing happiness.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest fallacies in America. Many people say to me, Todd, what's it like to be a millionaire? And I say, look, it's very simple. If I offered you $10 million, but you could never speak to your wife or your children again, would you take it? And they say, of course not. And I say, how about $10 million, but it comes with something called cancer? And they say, of course not. A famous rabbi in Israel does an interesting experiment with all of his new students every year. And he asks them to write down the 10 things that they think they need to be happy when they grow up. And it's always monetary. It's a beautiful house on a lake. It's a Porsche. It's something great. And he asked them to also write down a list of the 10 things that they are the most grateful for today. And he says, start out with your eyesight. Start out with the fact that, you have parents, you have people you love. And when he has that list, he says, what on the second list would you trade for the first list? And they say nothing. They wouldn't trade their parents for a new house. They wouldn't trade their eyesight, or the ability to breathe or, see or hear or whatever. And he says, so why do you spend all your time saying, I don't have enough? I only have 2 cars. I don't have 3 cars. So we're really misguided in America. It's really, when it comes down to it, it's about family, it's about your health, and it's about, again, learning to just be okay with what you have and being okay with you.
The book we're discussing is Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and finally, Let the Sun Shine In. Todd Patkin, our guest on the program. ToddPatkin.com, one of the websites. The book website is FindingHappinessTheBook.com. That information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You've got a great example in there, a story. Here's a 100-year-old lady, and they're asking her regrets. And boy, this is something, when you think about it, we all could, if we could take this advice and change it, our lives would be a whole lot simpler. She says, I really regret all the time I wasted worrying about things that never happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most of us do.
Yeah.
We don't live in the present. They say that 70% of the average person's time in their mind is not in the present. They're either thinking about, why did my mom love my sister more than me? Why did I handle it that way? If it only could have been different, or they're fearing the future. And so we spend so much time focused on the past and so much time focused on the future, we don't enjoy the present. How many times have you been with your children and you're with them in body, but in mind, you're thinking about the next big presentation? And we wind up really wasting our lives, worrying about things that never happened, like this 101-year-old woman said, or regretting your past.
The workbook is 12 Weeks to Happiness, Boot Camp for Building Happier People. I want to talk about some of the different focuses you have during the course of the time. And I'm looking through, you've got, of course, 12 for the 12-week program. None of them says go make more money. We're all talking about the topics that you've already discussed: exercising, taking charge of your mind, being easier on yourself, playing to your strengths. Let's talk about spending more time with positive people. How important is that? Does that rub off on us when we're spending time with people that have a better outlook on life and not negative?
This is the workbook. I don't know if you can see it. I know we're having some problems with Skype.
Yep,
this is
can see it.
The boot camp. And week 7 is, spending more time with positive people. I say to people, if you take your time and you do all 11 weeks of my 12 weeks, but you don't focus on week 7, which is spending more time with positive people, forget about the other 11 weeks. You're not going to solve your problem. There's a funny, wonderful quote that says, just choosing to no longer spend time with negative people doesn't mean you hate them. It just means you love yourself. We need to understand that you'll be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you take the 5 people that you spend the most time with and make a list and say, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being they're the most negative people in the world, 10 they're the most positive, list it for each one. Billy is a 7, Jenny's a 3, and take the 5, add it up and divide by 5. And now you're spending time with people who are a 3. I need to make some change. I'm spending time with people who are an 8. They're positive. That's great. People will either build you up or weigh you down. I'm blessed. I'm in a situation now where I can really just spend time with positive people. And for that reason, I'm positive all the time.
And we take a look at week 10, and I like this one, and you talk a lot about it in the book, Finding Happiness. And that's helping other people. What has that done for your life, the satisfaction you get when you are able to help others?
Well, they say that if you help other people, you'll be 40% healthier and you'll be 25% happier than the average person. So obviously there's something there. And when you help people, you just feel great about yourself. You say, I'm really a good guy. I like to try to go out and find someone who's in need and make a difference. It also makes you feel good because you're obviously contrasting. If you're reading to a blind person, you say, boy, am I so lucky I have sight. Or if you're helping, inner city kids, you say, my God, boy, was I lucky, for what I had or what have you. So helping other people just makes you feel great. It also shows you what you have in your own life. And it also lets you know that you have plenty. You realize that you do have enough time. You do have enough resources to make a difference in other people's lives.
And that would probably tie in with week 12, which is developing an attitude of gratitude. So whatever we have, and it might not be necessarily what we thought we were going to have 20 years ago when we reached 40 or 50, but being appreciative of what you do have.
Yeah, they say, as I said, that if you help people, you're 40% healthier and 25% happier. If you are grateful, you're 25% happier as well. And I always say to people, it's your choice in life. At any point in time, I don't care who you are, the richest person or the poorest person, you can look, figuratively speaking, to the left and come up with all the reasons why life did you wrong. I can do that right now. I can say, you know what, I could have been taller. I could have not had the depression, the anxiety, the breakdown. I could always have more money, even though I have a lot. I don't have what Donald Trump has. I could have more children. We could only have one. And I could feel bad about that. Or conversely, I can look at everything I have. I'm in a country that's free. I've got my health. I have a wonderful wife. I've got plenty of food on the table. So at every point in the day, you can choose. And if you live in America, you're better off than just about anyone else on the planet today. And going back to the beginning of time, you're the top 1/1,000,000% for wealthy. So it's your choice. But most of us tend to, in America these days, want to look at the Donald Trumps and the Warren Buffett and say, I got the wrong end of the stick. I don't have enough money. My life is so difficult. There's always someone who has it worse than you.
The book is Finding Happiness. We're out of time, unfortunately, on the program. We'll have Todd back. Much more to talk about. The book is Finding Happiness, One Man's Quest to Beat Depression and Anxiety, and finally let the sun shine in. Information at Todd's website, toddpatkin.com. Also information at the website, findinghappinessthebook.com. I mentioned the workbook. That's available as well. 12 Weeks to Finding Happiness Boot Camp for Building Happier People. Literally, Todd will take your hand and walk you all the way through this. All the things that Todd discovered in his life, he's put in the workbook form. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to follow during that 12-week period. Todd, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We look forward to having you back with us.
Rick, could I also just mention in March, I have a new book coming out, The Sunny Days Secret. I'm really excited about it, and hopefully a lot of your listeners will enjoy that too.
That'll give us a reason to have you back on the program, so keep us posted on that. We'll have you back, and we'll talk about that as well.
Thanks so much.
Todd, thank you. You're listening to This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.